Welcome to the debut edition of the Midnight Blitz Scoreboard. I'm Walter Johnson, and we're broadcasting live from Albany, Georgia at the Southwest Georgia Network Studios. And each week I'll be giving you the final scores and a little bit more in-depth analysis of some of tonight's games within the Southwest Georgia Network coverage area. Basically, that's the city of Albany, Dougherty County, Lee County, as well as Worth and other surrounding counties and communities. So without further ado, let's get started. And we're going to start with the Corky Kell Classic and the games that were played on Thursday night up in Macon, Georgia, on the campus of Mercer University at Five Star Stadium at Anderson Field. And the Lee County Trojans overcame the sluggish start. It was really sluggish throughout, but in the end, they come from behind in the fourth quarter to defeat the Mary Persons Bulldogs out of Forsyth, Georgia, located some 30 miles northwest of Macon. Final score, Lee County 21, Mary Persons 17, and Lee County goes to 1-0 on the season. And watch that game online late Thursday afternoon, early Thursday night. And obviously it was a game that where the fans had their money's worth. And you see like neither team could get anything going offensively in Lee County. It's a seesaw battle in Lee County. And had made a lot of mistakes for most of the game. Those first three quarters, jumped out to a 14-7 lead. Defense also forced some turnovers, made some big stops, and led 14-7 at one point. But that after they had a blocked field goal, and they returned for a touchdown, and that made it 7-0 Mary Persons. And then Lee County scored back-to-back touchdowns, and one of those came on a long bomb, made it 14-7, and then they muffed the punt late in that first half, and then led to Mary Persons scoring a touchdown, and then the scoring drive for Mary Persons during the third quarter. And Mary Persons held the ball for 6 minutes, 39 seconds, and took up most of that third quarter, and moving the ball down the field. 13 plays, 50 yards. But in the end, the Bulldogs could only settle for a field goal, 17-14 lead. And that would be the last lead Mary Persons will hold on the day. And Lee County responded with an 8-play, 92-yard drive of their own that lasted 2.5 minutes. And Nico Cruz scored what proved to be the game-winning touchdown. And the final score once again at the Corky Kell Classic, Lee County 21, Mary Persons 17. And obviously, head coach Dean Fabrizio and had to be pleased with the win, but at the same time, and the Trojans obviously have a lot of work to do, and then had a work cut out for them next week in their home opener against Bainbridge, and Bainbridge went 5-6 last year, barely made the playoffs, and this was after they went 13-1 a couple of years ago in 2015. Advanced to the semifinal round in Class 4A, only to lose to Cartersville. And so, but it'll be interesting to see how Dean Fabrizio and his Chargers respond in being in front of the home crowd for the first time, actually the first of 4 straight home games for the Lee County Trojans. Bainbridge next Friday, August 25th, and then probably September 1st. and they'll face Hardaway out of Columbus, and then September 8th home against American Sumter, and on September 15th against Luella. And Lee County won't be on the road again until September 22nd, when they'll travel all the way down US Highway 19 to just outside of Thomasville, Georgia, to face the Thomas County Central Yellow Jackets. So the final score in a Corky Kell Kickoff Classic, once again, up in Macon, Georgia, on the campus of Mercer University and 5-Star Stadium. Final score one more time: Lee County 21 and Mary Person 17. And we move right along to the game that will be played Saturday, which will be later today. For those of you who are listening live on the Southwest Georgia Network on our YouTube channel, and so it's coming in loud and clear, believe it or not. And the Corky County Packers will face the Norcross Blue Devils up in Gwinnett County at the brand new Georgia State Stadium which is taken over by Georgia State University. And for those people who are very familiar with sports in the Atlanta area, and the new Georgia State Stadium was Turner Field, and the 20-year home for the Atlanta Braves, who are now in Cobb County, and about a dozen miles up Interstate 75 from Midtown Atlanta. And I think this will be something good for Georgia State to have their own have a brand new stadium with home field advantage, their own home field advantage. And in any case, and you got the Corky County Packers coming off an 8-5 season, and this was after they won back-to-back state championships in Class 6A, while winning 30 straight games along the way. And the Packers will face a Norcross team that's coming off an 11-1 season, and got sent packing early in round 2. And the Packers went 8-5 last season, started off 0-4, and he got another tough schedule coming up this year. And after Norcross, and the Packers will play host to Vista Murrieta out of California. And then that's a long flight from California all the way to Georgia, Moultrie, Georgia to be exact. First of the 3 straight home games for the Packers at Mac Tharp Stadium, better known as the Hog Pen. You got Tucker, last year's Class 6A runners-up, who fell to Valdosta. Rough night for the Wildcats, by the way. And I'm going to try to get to that later in this broadcast or live podcast. And September 8th, Corky County home against Roswell, and Brookwood. And next up for the Packers on the 15th, and that's a road game up in Gwinnett County, Snellville, Georgia. And the Packers are back home against Valdosta on September 22nd, and on Saturday, September 30th, their final non-region contest is against Bishop Sullivan out of Virginia Beach, Virginia. And Bishop Sullivan is the number 1 ranked team, or one of the top teams in Virginia. And in any case, Corky County's got a big test ahead, a really big test ahead. And after a bye week, they open Region 1-7A play at Cannon County, and then one more home game on October 20th against Tift County and at Lowndes. And given that Region 1-7A has just 4 teams, and only the top 3 teams, the teams that finished in first, second, and third place, are guaranteed a playoff berth. And then and all four teams could conceivably make it to the playoffs if they have a power ranking that's high enough or strong enough at the end of the regular season. But first things first, for Corky County, you have to get through that first game. And let's move on to Friday night scores. And the Westover Patriots traveled down to Pelham from here in Albany, traveled down to Pelham, Georgia to take on the Pelham Hornets, the defending GHSA Region 1 Single A champions. And the Patriots get their 2017 season off on the right foot with a 35-28 win over the Hornets in a shootout. That was down in Pelham on this Friday, August 18th. This past Friday, August 18th now, as the time is now 12:20 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We're almost a half an hour into this Saturday, August 19th of 2017. In any case, head coach Octavia Jones and his Westover Patriots from right here in Albany, and get the victory, and it kind of survives in victory at that. And Westover was supposed to open the season next week against Monroe, and instead they opened against Pelham, and Pelham was supposed to open against the Indians of what used to be Albany High School. But of course that school is no more, and that's because of a decision made by the Dougherty County's Board of Education back on June 6th of this year, and the school board voted 4-3 in favor of closing Albany High effective immediately. So as a result, no more Albany High School, and it's going to be really strange, very strange, to see the red, white, and blue of the Westover Patriots, the green and gold of the Monroe Tornadoes, and maroon, silver, and white of the Dougherty Trojans, but no orange and green of Albany High. And again, it's just going to be really strange not to see those orange and green uniforms with orange and green A, the bright Florida orange, and the forest green A, and then the A logo, and the white helmets, and those dark evergreen or forest green jerseys with the letters in orange, letters and numbers trimmed in orange and trimmed in white. It's going to be really strange, but it is what it is. Once again, Westover defeated Pelham 35-28, and moving right along, you got the Dougherty Trojans under head coach Corey Joyner traveling to Ashburn, Georgia to take on Turner County. And just like Westover and Pelham, it's a back and forth affair between the Class Single A Trojans from Albany and the Single A squad from clad in orange and blue from Ashburn, Georgia. And it was a tight game, and it went right down to the wire. And it was Turner County emerging on top 29-28. And Dougherty put up a pretty good fight, but unfortunately, they fall 1 point short. And next up for the Trojans, next week, they'll be heading down to Camilla, Georgia to take on the Mitchell County Eagles. So Mitchell County's next on the schedule for Dougherty. And I think this is in Mitchell County. And Mitchell County's first game will be next week, and that shall be on Saturday night down in Camilla, Georgia, Saturday, August 26th. So, and So if you're a Dougherty fan, or Mitchell County fan for that matter, remember it's Saturday, August 26th, not Friday, August 25th. And again, Dougherty loses to Turner County 29-28. The final score. And moving on, up in Dawson, Georgia, Terrell County, and opened its season against Taylor County. And in the end, it was the Vikings that vanquished the Green Waves 39-0, the final score. And Terrell County has Miller County on the road next week. And speaking of the Pirates out of Colquitt, Georgia, and they came into Albany to face Deerfield Windsor, the Deerfield Windsor Knights, in a GHSA versus GISA matchup, public school versus private school. And it was the Pirates, the GHSA team, Miller County Pirates, picking up a 33-13 win over the GISA Deerfield Windsor Knights from Albany. And Deerfield Windsor opened the season with a 26-16 win on the road over Trinity Christian of Sharpsburg, up in tiny Sharpsburg, Georgia. We're roughly about 30 to 45 minutes southwest of Atlanta. It's in Coweta County, and also located 10 miles east of the county seat of Noonan, Georgia, spelled Newnan. I'll score once again, Miller County 33, Deerfield Windsor 13, and Thomas County Central. And the Yellow Jackets travel to Sylvester to take on the Worth County Rams, and that marked the debut of a new Rams head coach, Ben Simmons. And unfortunately for Simmons and company, the Rams fell 30-13 to the Yellow Jackets, and the Class AAA Rams, who finished 7-5 last season and lost in the second round of the state playoffs in AAA, fall to 0-1 on the season. And the Rams will host Turner County next week. And the Rams will host Turner County next week. And the Battle of Georgia Highway 112, if you will. And another GHSA Region 1 AAA team with a brand new head coach was Crisp County. And the Cougars made a short trip up to Vienna, Georgia, Vienna, to take on the Dooley County Bobcats. And it was Crisp County coming up on top in their debut under new head coach Brad Harber, Harber, Brad Harber, the interim head coach, replacing Shelton Felton, who resigned suddenly in June. He's now an offensive coordinator or an assistant at University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, competing at the NCAA Division I Football Championship Subdivision or FCS level. And the Cougars come out on top in their first game under interim head coach Brad Harber. And I think if things keep up, who knows? I mean, the folks up in Cordele just might remove that interim tag from the head coach title of Brad Harber. And once again, the final score: Crisp County 40, Dooley County 18. And next up for the Crisp County Cougars, and they'll be on the road again at America Sumter, the Panthers. And you got another score for the GISA. And the Warriors Brookwood School out of Thomasville traveled up to Dawson, Georgia to take on the Terrell Academy Eagles. And Terrell Academy opened with a win over Trinity Burns last week in the SICIS Challenge. And Trinity Burns, I think they're a school out of Alabama. I'm not sure, but I'm going to look them up. And whatever, when the opportunity presents itself. But in any case, the Eagles lose to Brookwood out of Thomasville, 21-12. And a GHSA contest up in Adel, Georgia. It was the Class AA Brooks County Trojans from down the road in Quitman, Georgia, against the Class AAA Cook Hornets. And this is a game that was scoreless at the half, but it was all Brooks County in the second half. And Brooks County came away with a 20-0 victory over Cook. And Brooks goes to 1-0, and Cook falls to 0-1. And it doesn't get any easier for the Hornets. And they'll travel just up I-75 to Tifton, Georgia, to take on the Tiffin County Blue Devils. The first of 3 straight road games for the Hornets. And Tiffin County traveled to Statesboro, Georgia, and Allen Paulson Stadium on the campus of Georgia Southern University. And Tiffin County came up on top with a convincing 42-0 win over South Effingham, which is not too far from Statesboro. And Class 6A, in Region 1 6A team, the Coffee Trojans out of Douglas, Georgia, in the southeast corner of the state, just barely in area code 912, telephone area code 912, outlasted Effingham County 35-20. And Coffee goes to 1-0, and Coffee, one of only 2 out of the 5 teams in Region 1 6A to come away victorious in this opening week of the season, or 0 week. And and Coffee defeats Effingham County, winning 35-20. And Tiffin County all over South Effingham, 42-0, the final score. And the Blue Devils picking up the victory. And as mentioned earlier, Tiffin County will host Cook up at Gene Brody Field in Tifton next Friday, August 25th. And I mentioned that Coffee, along with Lee County, were the only GHSA Region 1 6A teams. Region 1 6A teams to win games this week. And the other game in the Corky Kell Classic up in Macon had Region 1 6A Houston County Bears out of Warner Robins against the Jones County Greyhounds out of Gray, Georgia, some 20 miles or so northeast of Macon. And Jones County went 7-5, made the playoffs, and lost in the second round. And whereas Houston County, and despite being ranked number 1 for about roughly 5, 6, 7 weeks of the regular season, and also having one of the state's best quarterbacks, and Jake Fromm, finished 7-3 overall, but just 1-3 in Region 1 6A, and missed the playoffs last year. But on Thursday night, and Jones County just absolutely rolled all over Houston County. Final score: Jones County 42, Houston County 3. And then obviously a much different Houston County team. Not only is Jake Fromm gone, he's now at the University of Georgia. And his younger brother, and I forget his name, is now up the road at Warner Robins High School, the home of the Demons. And their head coach, Von Lassiter, who coached at Houston County, and then returned home to his hometown of Cochran, Georgia, to coach Bleckley County. That's Bleckley County, Bleckley. And again, late Thursday night, in that second game of the Corky Kell Kickoff Classic, final score: Jones County 42, Houston County 3. And doesn't get any easier. And then let's see, and more on in the other and two other Region 1-6A teams lost as well. And looking at some scores from elsewhere, Macon Charter down in Centennial Field in Camilla, Georgia, took on Patala Charter out of Edison, Georgia, in the Battle of the Charter Schools in Southwest Georgia, and competing in Region 1 Single A. Both of those teams. And Baconton goes to 1-0 with a convincing 46-0 win over Patala Charter. And the Blazers go to 1-0, and they'll travel to Pelham next week to face an angry Hornets team. Obviously, losing a tough one in a high-scoring game over the Class 4A Westover Patriots out of Albany. So it should be an interesting matchup next week. The Patala Charter will face Arcella Christian out of Monticello, Florida. And Arcella Christian, and seeing they played and Arcella Christian out of Florida played Georgia Christian out of Lowndes County. It was a pretty tight game. And see if I can get the final score. And Arcella Christian, the loser to Georgia Christian, 22-16 the final score in that contest. And you see and also another GHSA score. And before you get to that, or try to at least, the Warner Robins Demons, perhaps one of the biggest shockers of the season so far. Got the Warner Robins Demons knocking on Northside of Warner Robins. Score 28-17. The Demons and over the Eagles. And Warner Robins with just 3-8 last season. And they got eliminated in the first round of the playoffs in Class 5A. And just a huge win. I mean, and huge, not only just a huge win over an arch rival like Northside of Warner Robins, and also a big confidence booster for head coach Mike Chastain and the Demons. And then the Demons compete in Region 1-5A, which includes likes of Bainbridge and Thomas County Central. There's also the Harris County Tigers. Went 3-7 last year in Harris County Tigers in Hamilton, Georgia. Right in between Columbus and LaGrange along I-185, Interstate 185. And on the other hand, you got a Northside of Warner Robins team that lost to Tucker, who eventually fell to Valdosta in the 6A championship game last season. So and Northside of Warner Robins is just coming off a season-ending semifinal loss to Tucker, and Northside of Warner Robins finished 11-3 last season, and then obviously a really stunning loss, and a really very very stunning loss last night on this Friday night. Once again, Northside of Warner Robins upset by Warner Robins. Big Middle Georgia rivalry. 28-17 the final score. And finally, how about the big rivalry down in Valdosta, the Wintersfield Classic between the defending GHSA Class 6A state champion Valdosta Wildcats and the Class 7A Lowndes Vikings. And for years, and Valdosta and Lowndes ended the season against each other. And last season, and the Wildcats in front of the big home crowd at Bazemore Higher Stadium at Cleveland Field, or vice versa. And Versa got their 9th win in program history as they rolled over the Lowndes Vikings 38-13. And this year, though, the Vikings returned the favor and avenged last year's loss and just absolutely crushed the Cats. Final score, Lowndes 45, Valdosta nothing. And it's a big win for Lowndes and head coach Randy McPherson. And Lowndes goes to 1-0 on the season. And just a really huge win. It was a really surprising win. Not so much in that Lowndes won, but by the margin of victory. It's the margin of victory that was surprising, and Lowndes picking up just such a huge win. Again, just a big confidence builder. And for Lowndes, going in this 2017 season, just like Valdosta's win over Lowndes, and at Bazemore Higher Stadium last season, and set the tone for what would prove to be a championship season for the Cats, the Wildcats. And next up for Lowndes, they face the International School out of Broward County, Florida, and next week. And as for Valdosta, and the Wildcats will try to bounce back next week. And they'll face Woodland out of Stockbridge, Georgia, and Henry County, the Wolfpack. And that'll be the home opener for Valdosta. And I believe on that note, that's going to end the debut edition of the Midnight Blitz Scoreboard. And also the home in the Midnight Blitz Scoreboard on the Southwest Georgia Network. And that's also the home. It's also the home of the High School Football Roundup podcasts, or hangout, if you will. And remember, you can visit the Southwest Georgia Network online at southwestgeorgianetwork.com. That's Southwest Georgia Network, all one word, all one long word, southwestgeorgianetwork.com. And you can also follow on Twitter at SWGA Network. Follow on Twitter at SWJ Network. Not quite as long at SWJ Network. That's the Twitter handle for the Southwest Georgia Network. And again, I'm Walter Johnson, the host of the Midnight Blitz Scoreboard. So I'm going to sign off. I thank you for listening. Have a good night, good morning, and a good weekend. Thank you, and I'm out of here. And so long.